The Chiefs essentially got 2 top 20 players, and they didn't have to trade up from 29 to get that. So I think Brett Veach definitely, he won round 1. I think they've done a really good job.
I absolutely love him. I think he was the best corner in the draft after we found out that Jermod McCoy's knee was a little jacked up, right?
They applied that exact thought and logic to the corner position.
Yeah.
So I'll say, look, if they had to do it, they had to do it. I'm not worried about that anymore. It's over. It's done. It was about the same they get it for Trent McDuffie.
He's a guy that you can leave on an island, and he'll make sure he shuts everybody down. So he is the best corner in the draft, and we were able to get him.
I really like the Peter Woods pick.
And if you guys have been watching this show for a while, your boys here were begging for Nick Benito. We wanted that speed rusher, right? We want a speed rusher with some bend that can get after the quarterback. We've been missing that for so long in Kansas City. He's so fast. He's got a great first step. The get off is tremendous. And it just all equals that he knows how to get a quarterback down.
But it's a wait and see kind of C+. But here's what I'll say.
Wait and see plus. I like it. Football fans, welcome back to All Chiefed Up, the #1 independent Chiefs channel on YouTube. It is Tuesday, April the 28th. The draft is over. It was a crazy weekend. We're going to talk about all those guys and how we feel about the draft as a whole. And you're not going to believe who we think the best player in this draft is going to be 3 years from now. Let's talk about all that and more. Mike, how we doing?
We're doing good. Before we get going, hit like on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Steve, here's what I want to talk about today. Let's just run down each pick and a quick grade for them, and then let's get into some broader questions on these guys. So let's just start it right off the rip with the #1 draft pick. That is Mansoor Delane, Steve. The Chiefs moved up from number 9 to number 6. They traded their original first-round pick, which was 9. They give up third-round pick number 74 and a fifth-round number 148 to Cleveland. They took Mansoor Delane. What did you think of that pick, and what do you grade it?
So I had mixed feelings about this pick because the player, Mansoor Delane, I absolutely love him. I think he was the best corner in the draft after we found out that Jermod McCoy's knee was a little jacked up, right? So he was the safe #1 corner. I like him as a player because he's a guy that you can leave on an island, and he'll make sure he shuts everybody down. So he is the best corner in the draft, and we were able to get him. I just didn't like the idea of taking a corner in the top 10 of the draft. I thought this was a deeper draft for corner. So I thought that was a weird strategy, especially trading up and losing 2 picks just to land him at number 6. However, I love the player. I think he's fantastic. I'm excited for what he's about to do. And I think it was a really good pick because we had to fill the hole of Trent McDuffie, right? So go ahead and get that knocked out. I like it. I give that probably a B+, maybe even in the A category. It's just I'm not sure about the strategy Veach went.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to knock the strategy completely out. I read today that Brett Veach and the Chiefs had brought in Chris Johnson on a top 30, and they were set to maybe take him if they had to at the end of the first round. But they decided that they would probably need to trade up to do it, and so they were going to have to give up draft capital. And so they come to the conclusion that, look, if we have to give up draft capital to go from 29 to 23 and get the second best corner, then we'll go ahead and just get the first best corner and give up just a little bit extra draft capital. Now, look, I was on board with that, trying to tell people that if Brett Veach was to do that with a tackle at number 9, it made the most sense. And they applied that exact thought and logic to the corner position.
Yeah.
So I'll say, look, if they had to do it, they had to do it. I'm not worried about that anymore. It's over. It's done. It was about the same they get it for Trent McDuffie. But look, he was the #1 corner on my big board. He was the number 10 player on my big board, and we got him at number 6. I think it was fine. He's been a 4-star recruit. He was good all the way back at Virginia Tech. Fluid hips, elite route recognition. He's just a physical tackler. Look, he's a little bit slender. I think he can get bullied a little bit, just like McDuffie. But look, it didn't really bother McDuffie too much. I really like the pick here. I'll give you my pro comp for him. I thought it was A.J. Terrell meets Quinyon Mitchell, who was drafted last year and had a good season for the Eagles. Yeah. So, I mean, he's got a lean frame, but he's going to get after it, and I like that. So I give this whole entire some people say it's a debacle here in that top because they didn't really like it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it as a whole. I'm going to give it an A a solid A. Maybe it should be maybe an A plus. I'm going to go down to an A because of the whole entire trade up.
Yeah,
Was
it's,
it worth
it's
it?
a
Was
weird,
it
it's a weird situation because no one hates the player. I don't think
No.
you'd be crazy to not want Mansoor Delane on your team. I love his attitude too, man. I think he's a pretty cool kid, and I think he's going to be a dog for us. But let's talk about pick number 2, which was round 1 pick 29, Peter Woods. I thought this was tremendous value for the Chiefs, and it also checked a box. We needed defensive tackle. Brett Veach actually said he wanted to attack that twice in this draft. He didn't end up doing that, but he did get the best one. And to sit at 29 and get the top defensive tackle in the class after you already got the top cornerback in the class, I thought that was a killer first day when it was all said and done. Because at first we were questioning the whole trade up and this and that. We lost this pick, we lost that pick. But at the end of the day, you literally had the top defensive tackle, the top corner. You can't argue with that, man. Just rebuilding the defense, which had some holes that needed to be filled. I think Brett Veach attacked that perfectly.
Absolutely. They got CB1 on our board. They got DT1 on our board. I really like the Peter Woods pick. I'm also going to give this pick an A. I think it was great. He was the number 19 player on our big board, so the Chiefs essentially got 2 top 20 players, and they didn't have to trade up from 29 to get that. So I think Brett Veach definitely got round 1. He won round 1. I think they've done a really good job. We all know what I think about Peter Woods. He's literally a freaks list athlete. He's got violent hands, a relentless motor. Look, he's got to work on that missed tackle rate a little bit, and he's got that lower, those arm lengths could be a problem. But again, I comped him to Johnny Newton, who come out just last year, the year before.
Yeah, I like Johnny Newton.
He's got a little bit of a more pro-style body. But the reason they're similar is I've seen like that bowling ball comparison. They play with low centers of gravity, explosive first steps, and they got those heavy hands to knock those blockers back on contact. And I think that they're going to be a force to be dealt with. I'm going to go ahead and give this pick an A2. So that's an A for Delane and an A for Peter Woods.
Yeah, I would give this one an A because you said at 29, got the best defensive tackle in the draft. And anytime you can get a guy that can wreak havoc from the interior, you got to love the idea of that, especially with Chris Jones not getting any younger. Maybe Peter Woods can live up to that hype. It's going to be tough for someone to do that, but maybe he could fill those shoes. I don't know. And here's one thing I wanted to bring up. A lot of the fan base, Mike, they're like, hey, as soon as he got drafted, he went and bought his mom and his sister a Maserati. That must mean this guy's a terrible character, and he just makes terrible decisions. And I'm like, how in the hell does that equate to you? Like, this kid actually succeeded in life, and he wanted to do something nice for his mom and his sister, and somehow that makes him a terrible human. That blows my mind. I hate seeing that, and I don't mean anything bad about the people that question that or brought that up in our chat or comments or anything, but that seems asinine to me. I don't think that plays into anything like that. I wouldn't even compare those two. Like, I don't know how they correlate, but I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was silly.
Right. It's kind of weird. And I'm pretty sure he probably got enough NIL money to be able to get some of this stuff. So you're paying players in college. They're staying in college longer to take better contracts. Sometimes you get paid more in college than you would if you were a 5th round draft pick. So I'm going to throw that out the window too, Steve.
Yeah,
let's get
crazy.
on to round 2, pick 40, man.
Round 2, pick 40, we got R. Mason Thomas, defensive end from Oklahoma. Mike, I liked this dude. I thought that he was a really cool prospect because he was a speed rusher. And if you guys have been watching this show for a while, your boys here were begging for Nick Bonito. We wanted that speed rusher, right? We want a speed rusher with some bend that can get after the quarterback. We've been missing that for so long in Kansas City. And it's like we fell behind the rest of the league because the league kind of shifted to this kind of speed rusher type thing. And we just wouldn't do it. We kept drafting these guys that could set the edge, but they were never getting us any pressure on a quarterback.
Right.
Now, we saw them bring in guys like Josh Uche. They never could figure out how to use them. So that does scare you a bit when they invest a 2nd-round draft pick on a guy that plays similarly to that. However, I think R. Mason Thomas is just such a natural athlete, Mike. He's so fast. He's got a great first step. The get off is tremendous. He's got a lot of bend. He's got a lot of closing speed. And it just all equals that he knows how to get a quarterback down. And that's what he does. And I think it's going to translate. A lot of people's like, well, he's undersized. It won't translate to the NFL. It's not college no more. He's going to get knocked off his path. It's going to be too easy. I don't agree with that. I think there's a handful of speed rushers in this draft class, like him and Cassius Howell, that could make a pretty good dent in the NFL. And I know that people will disagree with that, but I like the pick of R. Mason Thomas. I think everything he does is like a lot of these other speed rushers, like Cassius Howell, like Joshua Josephs, which was brought up in our live stream the other day. But I think that R. Mason Thomas just looks smoother to me. It looks like it comes easier to him.
Yeah.
Like he's just so naturally gifted, and I think he's a really smart kid with a high football IQ. I like the pick. I'm excited as hell about this one.
Yeah, I like R. Mason Thomas. My drawback is going to be nothing to do with him and everything to do with Spags and his utilization.
Right.
I am still scared. I've got the PTSD from the Joshua Uches of the world and the Cam Thomases and even B.J. Thompson, we drafted him. And I know he had some medical stuff, but they never were really getting him going. So if I get that Spags wants to change what he's doing and maybe change the philosophy, but at the end of the day, is he going to settle back into what he knows and what he's comfortable with? And if so, it's going to feel like we wasted this pick. But getting to R. Mason Thomas on his own merit, he was my edge number 11. He was my big board number 54. I felt like it was a slight reach, but at the same time, he was the next guy coming off the board besides Cassius Howell. Those two were in the same pocket. Those two were the same type of pass rusher, and the Chiefs just decided to go with R. Mason Thomas, probably because of the Oklahoma connection there, maybe with DeMarco Murray. Who knows? Maybe like he give a nice word for him. I do know the kid's a very well-spoken kid. His family supports him, like everything around him. He just seems like a good guy. Look, he's got elite bend. He's got flexibility. We've been talking about that. He's got like a crazy motor. He plays with good natural leverage. My fallback for him is going to be he's had some high ankle sprains, chronic maybe even on each leg, so he's got to get that going. He's got a little bit of a lack of length there, so hopefully that don't dog him in the run game. Steve, I said it from the beginning. My NFL comp to him was D Ford, and I've actually put D Ford meets Malcolm Kuntz. I don't know if you've been familiar with Malcolm Kuntz, but
yeah.
He's just that shot out of a cannon kind of get off there, that dip and rip around the edge that we seen from D Ford all those years ago. And then a little bit like Kuntz, he's like that finesse plus pass rusher, right? He uses suddenness and that ankle flexibility to turn corners on tackles. They're expecting power, and he comes at them with speed. I like R. Mason Thomas. I'm going to give it a solid B to a B+. I think I would have maybe got to a B+ A if I knew Spags would just commit to using them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go B+, A-, maybe even an A. I'm somewhere in that range there. I'm with you. I really do hope that they utilize him because I do think he could be a great player. And I agree with you on your comp with D Ford and everything. And you even said Malcolm Kuntz, but I think that he has the potential to be way better than those two players. Okay. So I think that his ceiling's pretty high, and I'm excited about him. Mike, let's go to the next pick, round 4, pick 109, Jadon Canady, defensive back from Oregon. I know during our live stream of the NFL draft, a lot of people got upset because we were sitting there for, 69 picks? Yeah. We had to sit there forever and a day because Brett Veach gave away our 74. And there were like all these guys falling that we felt like could be good pieces for the Chiefs. Like even Chris Bell didn't go to like 94. And we just didn't try to trade up, get back in, nothing. Waited. And they took like the 4th or 5th best nickel corner on our big board. Right. So naturally, we were like, seems like a bit of a reach. However, Jadon Canady is a good player. He's a good player. He's a bit undersized, but he makes up for that in effort and effectiveness. Jadon Canady can absolutely come in this league and end up being a starting slot corner for you. I think that maybe at best, hopefully, he can alleviate us a little bit from Chamari Connor being in that nickel position because he's not good at it. So maybe Jadon Canady can come in here and do that for us. And I mean, it's kind of like a smart pick. We knew at that juncture, Mike, they needed a slot corner. Yeah. We knew that, but we were thinking like Chandler Rivers, Keontae Scott, and they went with Jadon Canady, and that's completely fine. I think that he's pretty versatile, and I think that the Chiefs will actually probably specifically look to use him as that nickel, but he's really good in the blitz. He can even rotate out to safety and stuff if they really need him to, and I think he'll be a help on special teams.
Right. You mentioned that we were a little down on it because we felt like it was a reach. And the only reason that we felt like it was a reach is because, again, this is the justification. We are not trying to go out and grab PFF's big board. We're not trying to go out and grab Todd McShay's big board, Mel Kiper's big board, and then come on here and put it on the screen and then try to sell you as that is our thoughts. Those are our rankings. We're not doing that. When you're watching All Chiefed Up, you're getting authenticness. We are putting time and effort into these players. We're evaluating them ourselves, and we are making our own big boards and rankings. Now, look, I'm not saying that that's how the Chiefs are going to rank it. They obviously ranked it a lot better. And look, I trust their rankings more than I trust my own rankings for sure. I'm not saying that. But in the moment, he went at pick 109, and we had him on our big board as pick 180. Okay, so we've seen that as about a round to a round and a half of like over value or a reach. We thought maybe he was better suited to go maybe early round 5, mid round 5, and they took him early round 4. So that was the disconnect there. It had nothing to do with Jadon Canady's ability to play football. He's a hell of a football player. It was just the fact of the big board, and we're on a draft special talking about our big board. So on to Jadon Canady. Yes, Steve, he was drafted over, at the moment, he was drafted over Keith Abney. He was drafted over Chandler Rivers, Charles Demings. He was drafted over Malik Muhammad, Will Lee III, Ephesians Prysock. He was drafted over a lot of people, so I think it was a little bit of a surprise. Now, I know there's a lot of in Veach We Trust people that just never want to like back off of that. But when you really take a step back a little bit, you might say, look, I could see why people may say it was a bit of a reach. But look, he's had a transfer journey. He's been around the world. Where in the world is Jadon Canady, Carmen Sandiego? He's played at Tulane. He's played at Ole Miss. He's played at Oregon. And I will say he's produced at each of those schools. But like you said, he brings ultimate versatility, high energy. He says he likes to trash talk. I love it. But he is undersized. There's no denying that at 180. He takes poor tackling angles. You see it all the time. And he bites on double moves constantly. So look, a lot of people are like, look, he's not just a slot corner. He may be used at safety. I honestly think that is a potential. Saying he comps to the Honey Badger is wild. That's just not going to be unrealistic. That's not going to hold true, Steve. Yeah. Chiefs Kingdom, we have officially partnered with Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy sports platform. It's distinctly separate from a traditional sports book, and it's the absolute best way to add some extra heat to every single game. The app is incredibly easy to use. You aren't playing against sharks. You're just picking more or less on an individual player projection. Think Kenneth Walker's total rushing yards per game, more or less. Travis Kelce's total touchdowns in 2026, only 4, more or less. You just pick at least 2 players, lock in your lineup, and you're in the action. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, Florida, and right here in the heart of America, Missouri and Kansas. One thing we love is the new public feed. You can actually find and follow us directly on the app at All Chiefed Up. You'll be able to see our live lineups and tell our picks before we even post them here on the channel or our other social media platforms. So if you haven't joined yet, just download the app and use code HMA when you sign up. When you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 in lineups instantly. Click the link in the description, use code HMA, and remember to always play responsibly. Now back to the show.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, my whole thing about this is I hope that he ends up being better than some of those guys that we thought were ranked above him. And here's the thing, man. There are 400 players that, declare for the NFL draft. And we watch a lot of tape on every guy that we can get. We try to watch as much tape as possible, but it's limited. So, I mean, in the limited tape that I watch of Canady, I thought these other dudes were better, but that doesn't mean that's true. And then, like you said, these professional scouts and these guys like that, I trust them more than I trust my own judgment. So I'm not I'm not mad about the Jadon Canady pick, and I don't think it was bad either. I actually think it filled a need, and I think the kid has some potential. I like it. And also, I think he'll play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too. A lot of undersized guys tend to do that. And like you said, he likes to trash talk and all that fun stuff. Yeah. So I think I like it.
One more thing about Canady is he also had a season-ending ACL meniscus surgery back in 2022. So he had a little bit of a medical red flag there as well. That was another reason he was rated a little bit lower on our board. But look, I went through and tried to find my best comparison I could of Canady. And Steve, you were right. When we're watching film, we got a lot of things to do throughout the year. We do a lot of content. We do a lot of things. We only get a limited amount of time. Chiefs, they have scout and a whole scouting department that gets paid to watch every single game probably these guys play in college. And like I said, he's played at Tulane, Ole Miss. He's played all over the map. I literally probably watched maybe 3 games, one at each place, and trusted my eyes. What I seen was Brent Grimes. I don't know if you guys remember Brent Grimes, the corner. He was undersized, but he always played bigger than his size. He was 5'10", the same as Canady, but they have incredible vertical leap ability. They can high point the football against bigger receivers. I think they're both scrappy, high IQ guys that'll just rely on their athletic springiness, and that if they have to be moved to the outside, they can do it, but I think they're better in the slot. So Brent Grimes was who my pro comparison was.
Yeah, well, I think I give that pick right there. I'll go C+ to B- for that pick. For the simple fact, I would maybe rate it a little bit higher because it did fill a need, and I do think he's a good player. Right. I just thought that I saw some other guys that might have been better candidates, but once again, that's my opinion.
Right. So, I'll say C+ too.
Yeah. Well, the next pick, I thought they got tremendous value on, Mike. Round 5, pick 161. They picked up running back Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. Tremendous value. Like I said, this kid was the Big Ten running back of the year. First team all Big Ten, and he led the entire FBS with 151.8 all-purpose yards per game. Yeah. I think this is a kid that could be a 3-down back in this league, but guess what? He doesn't have to be. He's going to come in here, be a change of pace guy for Kenneth Walker III, and what a hell of a change of pace guy you got. This guy, to me, he does a lot of things well. He's good in running in the zone scheme, which is exactly what the Chiefs like to do. I think he sees those lanes well. I also think that he receives the ball well. He runs routes like a receiver. This kid can do a lot of things. He's well-rounded, and he's proven. If you look at the production, it cannot be denied with Emmett Johnson. This kid is a dog, and I think that, ceiling, maybe when Kenneth Walker's contract is up, maybe the future of the Chiefs running back room might be Emmett Johnson. It really could be. He'd be on probably his last year of his rookie contract at that point. But if he can get in there and produce and he can show that he can be a 3-down back in the league, I think the Chiefs might look at extending him at that point.
Yeah, I like the Emmett Johnson pick. I had showed during the live that we did over the course of those 3 days that I was telling people in January that Emmett Johnson was going to be a name to watch the further down we got closer to, pro days and the combine and different things. So I've been big on Emmett Johnson. He ended up finishing as my RB6 and my big board 107. So right outside of my top 100. So I give him an early 4th round grade. And the Chiefs traded up with the Steelers and took him at pick 161 in the 5th round. So Brett Veach got tremendous value there. He used to play defense. He was a former safety. He's a first team all Big Ten guy, multi-sport athlete. Look, he can redirect with the best of them. He can stop on a dime. He's got that receiving slot ability if you need to get out there and catch the ball. I like that a little bit. Where his weaknesses come in for me is he don't have that breakaway speed. He gets caught from behind a lot. He doesn't make a lot of yards once he gets contacted. That could be better, but I will say he does churn. He shows the effort. He's just not a very big guy at 205. He plays with a little bit too high of a pad level for me at times, but he does make a lot of guys miss. I think he had like 53, 58 missed tackles last year, which was one of the tops in college football. I actually comped him to Kyron Williams meets Dameon Pierce. And we had Dameon Pierce on the roster last year and tried to let him play a little bit, but Andy just couldn't get it going. But I thought he mirrors what Kyron Williams does a lot with his vision and his efficiency. They don't have that breakaway, huge 4.3, 4.4 speed, but they understand how to tempo their runs, and they're reliable receivers out of the backfield. When it comes to Dameon Pierce, I've seen that he churns his leg in short yard situations, but he's more shifty strong. He's going to make you miss in a phone book. He's going to force a lot of missed tackles, but once they get their hands on you, he's going to go down pretty easily, but he can always make that first man miss. I think if I had to give this a grade, it's an A+ off pure value, but I'm going to give it a B+ overall because I don't know if the running back at that position was the most important thing. I thought maybe right then and there they could have addressed the wide receiver, which we're going to get to in a minute.
Yeah, I could see that. But the thing with Emmett Johnson, I feel like the value was so good they couldn't pass it.
Yeah,
up.
You're right.
Well,
they
actually traded up. They traded up to get him because they thought he was going to get taken, and it was already good value at that point. But here's the thing. I kind of want to smack myself a little bit on the wrist and be like, bad Steve, because with Emmett Johnson, I had him up higher in my rankings of running backs early in the process, but then he didn't wow anybody at the combine. And you kind of let that get to you, and you're like, oh, he didn't test well. sometimes it doesn't freaking matter. Like, let's be real here. When I sit here and I want to tell you what I think his weaknesses might be, or this or that, or what like the whole like the drawback is, or why I dropped him, and I think it's just silly. Like if I look at the production and I look at his college tape, I mean, played good competition and he put up, dude. Like I don't even know how I can argue with it. And I think this is an excellent pick. I'm gonna give it an A all over because I think that it was a great value and I actually think he can be a really good player in the league. But you mentioned the wide receiver, Mike, and in round 5, pick 176, the Chiefs took Cyrus Allen, wide receiver of Cincinnati. And this pick makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs when you really take a step back and look at it, because this is kind of similar to the Jadon Canady pick where it was like, well, we had some other guys on our big board that were a little ahead of Cyrus Allen. But when you really look at the big picture, the Chiefs struggled so bad with separation last year in the wide receiver room. They were the worst team in the National Football League at creating separation. This kid knows how to do that. He is damn good at it. He does it on a consistent basis, and I think that's why they love him so much because, hey, we have to change this narrative. We have to get guys that can get open, that can make Patrick Mahomes' life easier, because you can have guys that run 4.2 40s like Xavier Worthy all day. But if he can't create separation or get himself open, then what does it matter that he can run that fast? I think Cyrus Allen gives you a little bit of a different look at that. He's very prototypical Andy Reid Chiefs wide receiver type as far as size and his speed and stuff like that, and the fact that he's probably going to be a slot guy most of the time. But I do think that he brings something different to the table because he specializes in creating separation. We also have a new wide receiver coach in the house with O'Shea. I think that's kind of what he's going to be working on with these receivers, probably leverage and setting up those defensive backs to use momentum against them and get yourself open and create separation, because that's what Chad O'Shea is known for doing. And I think this is a match made in heaven with Cyrus Allen. So I actually like the pick a lot. In hindsight, I probably give this one an B+, A- pick, because I mean, you're already picking it round 5. At that point, you're literally throwing darts, right? If you can get these guys in there and get any production out of them at this point, it's a win.
Yeah, these are guys that are going to come in. They're going to hopefully get to camp and compete. They're going to work themselves into the lineup. Hopefully, in 2 to 3 years, they're contributing, and they're going to be like special teams value early in their career. That's just the way it is. And even with an Andy Reid system and an offense, we can see that they routinely will not use young wide receivers very often. Like, yeah, there was a little bit of an exception to the rule with Worthy and then Rashee Rice, but I think it's because they were more forced to do that. I think the receiving core, the Chiefs team is not as down on their receiving core that they had before the draft as the fans were. And I think that was the disconnect there. But here's what I'll say about Cyrus Allen. When I first seen him, he was in a pocket. For me, he was in a pocket with Deion Burks, Kevin Coleman Jr., Brennan Thompson, and then there was one other guy right there. I think it might have been Eric Rivers, Kendrick Law. That was the other ones. So those were the pockets of the receivers that I thought were like slot weapons that the Chiefs could target. Also, Zach Branch was in that one. So they were all kind of like that pocket of player. Obviously, Zach Branch was the highest rated one there, and he ended up going round 3, I believe. But I actually thought Deion Burks and Kevin Coleman were a little bit better for me, but it was splitting hairs there. And I think at the end of the day, now that I go back and watch more Cyrus Allen, I'm fine with the pick, and I actually think that he could have been rated higher than I rated him. Now, another thing I'll say about this is he played 92% of his snaps in the slot. So is he just going to be slot dependent? Because Andy Reid doesn't really allow that. You have to move all around. Is he capable of doing that? His ADOT did get over 10, so that's positive. That means they'll throw the ball down the field for him, and then he's only got a 2% drop rate. That's a positive. His contested catch rate was at only 20%. That's not the greatest, but he ended up finishing on our big board 172. The Chiefs took him at 176, so the value was completely fine. Again, everybody was saying, you guys didn't like the pick, you didn't like the pick. that's not the case. Again, that was just a case where there was some higher rated players on our big board at the time. But look, he set Cincinnati's single season touchdown record this past year with 13. He's got good speed. He snaps at the top of his routes. He can beat his zone. And like you said, he can get open to man. But it doesn't take away that he's a little skinny. He struggles versus the press a little bit, and he just doesn't contested catch. That's what it is. I would rate this right now, if I had to say it, and it may piss some people off, but I'm still going to give this grade a C+ to a B-. Why is that? Because A, I don't think he's going to be super, super effective in the early years. I hope he proves me wrong, but I just don't see how he beats Xavier Worthy on the field. And I feel like the Xavier Worthy position, minus Worthy being unhealthy and missing time, I don't know how this guy's going to be on and contribute out of just being like the gadget guy. So I tried to go to the comp and I didn't want to be lazy and just say Xavier Worthy or somebody like that. So I come up with a skinnier Odell Beckham. Now that sounds crazy. I'd give that a C+, but the only reason is because I think they have instant acceleration, just like OBJ. And then I think he does really good of high pointing the ball when they throw it deep. So that's why I wanted to go that route. He's not going to be OBJ, probably 0% chance of that. But that was like where I wanted to go. I didn't want to be lazy and just be like, well, he's he's a worse off Xavier Worthy, right?
Right. Well, I like the pick. I think it was good. And then they went on to round 7. It took forever to get to, but picked 249. And they grabbed Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback from LSU. And at the time, everybody just fell over and passed out because you'd been waiting so long to see which player they're going to get. And they grabbed a quarterback, which seems absurd for the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes there. Like, what are we doing? We just traded for Justin Fields. Like,
right.
Why are you drafting a quarterback? And here's the answer to that. Pure value. Like, no matter what I think about this pick, Mike, I can't grade it anything less than an A+, because you got a quarterback that very easily could have gone in the top 3 rounds at pick 249. And this goes a couple of different ways. I think that Garrett Nussmeier's floor in this league is a QB2. Like, I think he's going to be at least a decent backup somewhere. And when you really start to look at it that way, he's going to come in here and develop with Mahomes and Andy Reid. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go here. First of all, another team that needed a QB didn't get that chance. They don't have a chance to have a guy that could come in the league and be productive. What if you passed him up there and he ended up being a starting quarterback somewhere that beat your ass? You're going to kick yourself.
Yeah, true.
And then on top of that, if he does develop well and he looks really good and you can get him in the game, say preseason or things like that, and showcase him, maybe later down the line, you can get something for him. So it could go a bunch of different ways. I know people bring that up and people have, well, that's why they did this. I don't know if that's why they did it, but it is a possibility. But I just think it was a late round swing, and it was kind of like, hey, why is this dude still here? Let's take him.
Yeah. Yeah, they got this pick because of the trade with the Steelers, the one that involved Emmett Johnson. So, yeah, we all waited. I think it was just a shot. It was a kick in the nuts to just take a QB. Like, you felt like there were some players on the board that could contribute this year, and this guy just feels like a backup plan. But it's a cheap backup QB option for the next, 4 years. And like you said, you can develop this kid, and the value was tremendous. He was QB3 on our rankings, and his big board ranking was 106. He was one spot ahead of Emmett Johnson.
Right.
And we got a 106. We got 2 potential top 100 players in rounds 5 and round 7, which is
crazy.
Insane. Dude, his dad, he's smart. His dad is the Saints offensive coordinator right now, Doug Nussmeier. He was the Texas Bowl MVP. He processes plays very quickly. He anticipates his throws very well. He's got a pro pedigree, hands down. He had a little bit of a back injury, something about a cyst that was compressing his spine a little bit or something, or his abdomen. It was something crazy. And he's got smaller hands, of course. He's not really going to give you a run threat, so he's not that stereotypical RPO kind of guy like the Justin Fields we traded for. But I copped him to Andy Dalton. Just kind of like a timing rhythm guy that he's not going to beat you with his feet. He's just going to be a smart processor of the play, and he's going to come out and do what he's got to do to win. I think he's not going to out-athlete anybody, but he wins by knowing exactly where the ball should go before it's even snapped. So I think he's a high-floor backup when it's all said and done that is going to rely on being technically sound, his anticipation more than his arm talent. And look, it's crazy. He's 24 years old. He's tied with Nazeeh Johnson and B.J. Thompson for being the highest or the oldest player ever drafted by Brett Veach and the Chiefs. Brett Veach as GM of the Chiefs at 24 years old. So there was a lot of ways that the Chiefs changed their stripes a little bit after we criticized them all offseason and said, leopards don't change their spots, and they did. R. Mason Thomas and everybody.
Right? They did and they didn't. Because I think, you start looking at players like Cyrus Allen, and they absolutely did. And they took the same kind of receiver.
That's true.
They always take. But, all in all, I thought this was a very good draft. I really do. I think that they checked a lot of boxes. All players were in positions of need, and I think that they did a good job at it. If that's a strategy that they wanted to take, I think that they were effective. They did exactly what they wanted to do. And then even Garrett Nussmeier in round 7, once again, you're like, why are they doing this? But doesn't it make it feel a lot better when you see them go out and sign UDFAs like Xavier Wampa, John Michael Gillenborg, Wesley Basaint, even Jeff Caldwell? You see all these guys that could have very easily been drafted in round 5 and on.
Yeah, Vincent Anthony.
Yeah,
edge from Duke.
You see all these guys they were able to get, and it definitely makes that much easier to swallow, right? And the same way with we didn't really particularly care for the trade up for Mansoor Delane or taking a corner that early in the draft. I just didn't. But when you're able to land Peter Woods at pick 29, and all of a sudden you got the top DT and the top CB, that makes that pill a lot easier to swallow. And the Chiefs did this a lot in this draft, because if you go back to round 4, pick 109 with Jadon Canady, you're like, damn, I feel like they reached a little bit on Canady. They potentially, in my opinion, they could have maybe had this guy or this guy. But then they turn around and get Emmett Johnson at pick 161. And it's like, oh, well, that makes that feel a lot better. Because if they took Emmett Johnson at that last pick, I wouldn't have argued it. And if they took Jadon Canady at 161, I wouldn't have argued it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the way they went about it, it was effective. And I think that Brett Veach and staff did a really good job in this draft. I think overall, this draft has to fall into an A- for me. I wanted to say like B+, but I feel like that's cutting them short.
So for one, I think that a lot of people have been hyping this draft up. All the professionals and everybody on all the major platforms like the CBSs and things, they're all giving Brett Veach A+, he won the draft, A-, he won the draft. I think he did a very good job. I think he stuck to his big board. He went up and got Delane. He needed to get that CB1. That was what they all felt the most important. He did it. I think he stuck to the big board after that. I really do. I think he stuck to what they wanted to do. They didn't panic. And then at the end, they ended up making a move that netted them great value with Nussmeier in round 7, and then really great value with Emmett Johnson in round 5. So I think overall, Brett Veach didn't work the boards as great as maybe we would like, but maybe he worked the boards in the way he's seen he had to. And so I think he stuck to what he wanted to do. I think they wanted to be defensive heavy. And so I think that they all agree that they had an A+ draft, obviously. I think at the end of the day for me, and it's so hard to give draft grades because none of these guys have played a snap. So we're basically still just giving grades on what our projections are, which is ridiculous in a way. But I'm going to say the entire thing is a B. A flat B, not a B+, not a B-. I'm just going to say a dead B. And why is because B is a great grade. It's not like you just half-assed it and you passed like a D or maybe even a C. You're not average. You're not a C student. You're above average, but you're not honor road just yet. Now, do I think we could get there? Absolutely. Delane could be great. But when you break it down to Trent McDuffie, is it really probably going to fall the same way McDuffie with where he's going to be a top 3 corner in this league? The odds are astronomically pretty low. Peter Woods, he looks really good at times, but he does have short arms. He did disappear on film a lot, and although I love it, I want to take it with a grain of salt and be like, look, maybe he does kind of go the way of Omar Norman Lott, and maybe he doesn't shine as well as he does. And then looking down the board, maybe R. Mason Thomas doesn't get used enough. Maybe Cyrus Allen gets buried a little bit because he can't find his way onto the field. There's just little things like that lets me say, look, in 3 years I'll come back and I'll grade it. But for now, I'm just going to take the wait and see approach and just give him a solid B.
Yeah, I understand that. But at the same time, no matter who they drafted, I think you could have those same drawbacks, right? It doesn't
Absolutely.
Matter. It doesn't matter who they drafted. And let's be honest here. They drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, right? They drafted 7 players. There's 4 that I feel like could be immediate impact players in the league, potentially. And that's Mansoor Delane, Peter Woods, R. Mason Thomas, and Emmett Johnson. I think all 4 of those guys could be immediately impactful. And that's not like downing Jadon Canady or Cyrus Allen, because I think that they absolutely could contribute early. It just depends on if they can get out there and if they can get going. But I thought it was a great draft, man. I think overall they kind of hit a lot of positions of need. And like the more that I let it marinate and the more I've got to watch tape on these guys a little bit more extensively and think about it, I think that they did a really good job. And I wasn't mad at the draft at all. I had a really fun weekend covering the draft. It was a lot of work. We put a lot of work into it. And it was at times mind-numbing when you're sitting here for hours just waiting for one pick. But, I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think overall I'm pretty happy with the entire thing. I'm just excited to see them get out to rookie minicamp here coming up and getting this thing rolling, man. We'll be at phase 2 before you know it.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a question about this draft? When in 2 to 3 years, so we'll say maybe 4 years, once that class kind of goes, all the contracts come up, at the end of the 4 years, besides Mansoor Delane, because he's a top 10 pick, which one of the guys do you think is going to be the most impactful for the Chiefs maybe out of this draft class 4 years from now, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it could be maybe 3 different guys, but I'm going to go
Give me one.
With a gut feeling and off of just pure potential, R. Mason Thomas. I think this kid could come in and be a 10-plus sack guy. He really could. He's that good. If as long as Steve Spagnuolo puts him on the football field. But I tell you this, that's kind of on R. Mason Thomas too, because you have to prove that you can stop a run. So if you can develop that into your game, then you're going to be on the field more. If he can do that and he can be in there 3 downs, I think he's going to be fantastic. The fact that George Karlaftis was able to get 10-plus sacks one season, I think R. Mason Thomas absolutely can do it too. I think he's going to be super impactful. And out of all these guys, something about him makes me think he might be the one.
Yeah, I graded him a B, but I'm right there with you. I think he could be. But since you just said that and took him, I'll pivot. I'll pivot on the fly here. And it doesn't correlate with the grade I give him. It doesn't correlate to the reaction or the board ranking I give him. But I'm going to say Cyrus Allen here. And
you wanted to say Cyrus Gray so bad that you had to pause.
Cyrus Allen is who I'm going to go with. I did not. I will deny that. I'm going to go with Cyrus Allen. I give him a C+ grade, right? But it's a wait and see kind of C+. But here's what I'll say.
A wait and see plus. I like
it.
it.
The way he plays, he fits the Andy Reid style so well. So it's not like you took a big X wide receiver that's just not going to get a lot of, Mahomes is not going to throw the 50-50. They're not going to throw the fades. Like, this is the guy that's going to work the slot. He's going to whip route. He's going to do ends. He's going to just do all these things, slants. He's just going to get open, and Mahomes is going to be able to throw him the ball. So I think he can be effective if he can get on the field. Now, the reason I think he could contribute early is that I think he could be a special teams contributor for us. And then number 2, I'm not so sure after 2 years of Xavier Worthy that this cat can stay on the field for 17 games. And so he's going to have a chance.
I feel like that's unfair for a second. If I can interject for 1 second. I understand that he was hurt, but this kid hurt himself and went and played the rest of the season, putting a surgery off. I think that shows a little bit of toughness.
I'm not saying he's not tough. I'm just saying that this past year, if one little thing would have been wrong, he couldn't have played through it. He may have had to have surgery. And he's just a smaller body. So I'm just saying, like, the way it's been, and well, look, you can even put Rashee Rice into it as well. Like, all of our receivers tend to have a little bit of like an injury or a suspension problem.
Well, if Mahomes stays away from the knees of Rashee Rice,
right?
He'd probably be okay.
I'm just saying that I do believe that in 4 years, maybe you're not sold on Xavier Worthy. Maybe there's just a chance for him to get on the field. And I think once he gets out there, he could be a weapon for Mahomes because he's got that street ball mentality where he can kind of like just be quick and get open. Now, again, I've got to do the wait and see. And it's weird. It's almost like it contradicts my C+ grade, but I do believe that he's a good football player. And I think that's what I'm saying. I can grade you at a C plus because I want to see what happens, but I
Right.
can acknowledge that you're a good football player and that if you're given the chance and you take advantage of your opportunities, I think the kids, sky's the limit for them.
Guys, we appreciate you listening. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do us a favor, give us a 5-star review. If you're watching here on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're trying to get to 100K ultimately. We're a little over halfway there, but we need your help. So if you haven't subscribed, please do that. And we'll see you guys next time. Go Chiefs.